You might take a look at this multi-hour long soccer video and go, oh, this looks like a cool video essay. No. This is going to be me going over my top 100 U.S. soccer prospects going into college this year. But why? For one, college soccer is a big resource for the U.S. At the World Cup, 8 of our players played in college, and of those, Tim Ream and Matt Turner really looked like they belonged. And in addition, some good young players are coming through there, like Roman Celentano, as well as Duncan McGuire. And more than that, I'm just glad that college soccer exists as an option. I think it's an objective good thing. Because if you're in an academy around the world and you don't make it, you're gone. Bye. But here, if you don't make it, it's you get a good education and you have a good foothold for the rest of your life. And I think that's a good thing, and I'd like to see something similar be adopted by academies around the world. And I want to say that I spent a ton of time on this. So many hours looking over full game footage of over 300 players. I had a player pool of over 1,000. This took so much work, so please like, comment, subscribe, share this. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into it. The top players from college soccer are typically goalkeepers. We've seen a ton of really good players go to the Premier League, including Matt Turner right now, and there's going to be a lot of goalkeeper representation this year. But there's one that quite literally stands above the rest. Julian Eyestone is a U.S. under-17 international from FC Dallas who's going to Duke. He is a 6'6" goalkeeper, massive, he might still be growing, and he uses his height very well. He controls his box very well, very good at claiming crosses out of the air. In addition, reactions, shot stopping, very good, especially for his age. And when you watch him, you can tell he watches a lot of David De Gea film. He uses his legs very well to make saves. With his feet and his distribution, he's good. He can make a lot of good passes even when under pressure. He's not Ederson or anything, but it's far from a weakness. And in addition, he is a freak athlete, one of the fastest players at FC Dallas as a goalkeeper, which is kind of insane. And to top it all off, he's actually a 2006 player. Now, the graduating class this year should be 2004 and 2005, but he actually reclassified, so he's going to be one of the youngest players in college soccer this season, and he's just a very exciting prospect, and second straight year, a Duke player is number 1 on the list. Now, I'm not just going to be looking at the top MLS academies for this. I'm going to be looking at USL, some international players, and even high school players. And I want to talk about high school because, while it's not the level of MLS Next, this is college soccer players. We're looking for late bloomers, and this is a good place to find some. And in addition, with the level of soccer rising around the country, there are just more good players around. I mean, recently we had Chase Adams go from being a high school player to helping a youth national team win a championship while being the top scorer. I think there's a lot of talent to be found here. Alex Waggoner is my top high school player this year. He's a striker from Santa Fe in New Mexico, and he's going to the University of Michigan. As a striker, he is a great player, amazing finishing. He can score with both of his feet and is very strong in the air as well. He's also got a ton of energy, good athleticism, good speed, and his pressing has been very strong. And his technical ability and hold-up play is solid as well. As a high school player, his accolades speak for themselves, but I just want to point out that in a state championship game, he led his team to a 4-3 win in overtime where he scored all 4 goals, which is just insane. And all this was done as a junior because he spent his senior season with New Mexico United, the USL team in New Mexico, who do a really good job of recruiting New Mexican players, I should say. And he was dominant at the academy level, being the top goal scorer at the academy championship, and earned himself a spot with the first team, where he's been a regular contributor and scored multiple goals, including a game winner against Detroit. I just imagine that there's some Michigan fan who's also a Detroit fan who just saw that game and was like, oh, God, we lost because this really good young player stepped up against us. And then they tune into a Michigan game and go, oh, it's him! It's him! I hope that happened at least once to somebody out there. He is a really talented player, and I'm going to be tuning into Michigan games to watch him play. This is the top U.S. prospects going to college, but U.S. prospect can be a bit hard to define. I mean, basically everybody's a dual national nowadays, so that doesn't rule somebody out. So what I'm going with is players who look like they're leaning towards another national team aren't going to be on this. So, for example, Pierce O'Brien, who's been playing with Ireland youth national teams, and Marki Harajevic, who spent a lot of time in Croatia and whose brother is with Croatian youth national teams, isn't going to be on it. But the next guy is somebody who will be here. Caleb Borneo is a midfielder or a winger from Columbus Crew who's going to be joining Akron. And I say midfielder or winger in a Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna kind of way where they can play either position. Borneo spent time with the U.S. Under-19 team and made his pro debut for Columbus too. In addition, he did spend time with the Soka Warriors, Trinidad and Tobago's national team, but his most recent international experience has been with the US, so I'm going to be counting him as a player for this. As a player, he's really good technically, great on the ball, and shows a lot of good creativity, something that can be a bit of an issue for American prospects, but he has that in spades. In addition, he's got some pretty good speed and dribbling, which can help him on the wing, and he's a really fun player that you want to get on the ball, who's going to be exciting to watch. Once again, this is the top prospects going into college. So somebody who took a gap year before entering college will be rated lower than somebody who reclassified to join college earlier. Just younger players have more potential. But this is a young player who would be on this regardless of if he reclassified or not. Nacho Alem is a winger from DC United who's going to be joining Virginia. He's another 2006 player and another U17 international. He's made his pro debut with Loudoun United already and was part of a U16 national championship winning team with DC United. DC typically haven't had the best academy, but their 2006 group is already really good. Mattia Cambone's made his debut, and Nacho looks like one of the best in that category. Probably because they got rid of the pay-to-play model, their academy's doing a lot better lately. But Nacho as a player is very good. He's got a lot of good speed, good dribbling, and his finishing is his main strength. He can play up top, but I'd like to see him play on the right wing. He's actually a left-footed player, which is very hard to come by for U.S. prospects. So playing on that left wing, being able to cut in and score goals from that right-hand side, I think could be crucial. He's a really young player. I'd expect to get a homegrown deal from DC United, and definitely somebody to keep your eye on. I'm going to keep going over academy players. We'll get to high schools later. And for these next few players, I want to talk about guys who I believe have just complete skill sets. And what I mean by that is to be a pro player, you typically need to be so good on the ball, so athletic, and so good at finishing if you're a striker, so good at defending if you're a defender, so good at passing if you're a midfielder, things like that. And I believe that these players have all of those skills, so I think they could have a ton of potential. But I should just say that I'm talking about prospects who are going into college. I'm under no illusions that everybody in here is going to be a great player, but I think it would be unproductive to poke holes in their games, so this is going to be all positive. Brandon Marshall is a center back from Charlotte going to Providence, and he has everything I like to see in a center back. He's got good athleticism with strong speed and strong strength. He's also very good on the ball, good under pressure, can make good passes. I've seen him make a couple of really good no-look passes when I was watching him play. Then, good in the air. I think he's actually taller than the 6'2" he's listed as, but still, it's definitely a strength, and a good defender with good instincts and tackling. Just a solid player with everything I like to see in a defender. Brendan Lambe is a defensive midfielder from Atlanta who's going to be joining the University of Virginia. Lambe is very good on the ball, can really help out in build-up, and is always in the right place defensively to help break up attacks. And he was doing this in the USL Championship while Atlanta United 2 still played there, and he was looking good against pros. He also spent some time with North Carolina FC, and he was looking really good offensively in the USL Academy Championship against the lower level. So I really feel confident his defensive ability, his build-up play, and his offensive skills as well. I think he can be a really good defensive midfielder. Diego Rosas is a winger from Houston who's going to be joining Portland University. He's a winger with a lot of good dribbling and good speed as well. He's played with the U.S. Under-19 team and made his pro debut for Houston 2 as well. As a player, he's got a really good low center of gravity, which isn't just a nice way of calling somebody short. He has a ton of really good agility. He's the type of player that a commentator would call a human joystick. Just a really fun player to watch with that. He comes from Houston, which isn't historically a good academy. I don't think you should be using this video to rate academies. Players going to college can be kind of variable in that respect. But he did get his start at Rio Grande Valley, who actually has another good winger prospect I'm going to be talking about next. Zurdo Herrera is a winger/midfielder from Rio Grande Valley who's joined the University of Michigan. He's a really talented player as a youngster, already making regular appearances in the USL Championship. He's actually played a good bit at right back, which I don't see in his future, especially since he's left-footed, but it's a testament to his work rate that he has. He's really good technically, love his passing ability. I think that he'd be fun to play on the wing with his left foot, but he's so good in the middle that you could play him there as well. Just another really talented prospect from USL going to Michigan. Alixson Soukup is a winger from LAFC joining San Diego State. He's another US U19 international who's made his pro debut. As a player, he's got a lot of good speed and energy, which he uses to be a really good presser, and he just has a lot of good desire. Like, for somebody as small as he is, he wins a lot of headers. He's another lefty as well, so somebody you'd have cut inside on that left foot, and another player who has really good dribbling on that wing position as well. I think he's a really talented winger prospect, and after CJ Faudree was able to make a big splash, Alixson Soukup might be the next guy to do it at San Diego State. And one more lefty, why not? Luke Martelli is a left back from the Philadelphia Union joining Villanova. He's made his pro debut and was a part of their U17 national championship winning team. Their 2022 one. I mean, we got one in 2023 as well. We're a really good academy, I have to specify. I have a Philadelphia Union bias, get used to it. But Martelli is a really talented prospect with good speed, a lot of energy on that left-hand side. Philadelphia Union, they don't use wingers in their system typically, so the fullbacks have to provide width, and he's able to get up and down the field a ton. A lot of great energy there. With his speed, good defensively, and his left foot is really good at putting in crosses. He's a good guy on set pieces as well. A really talented left-back prospect who I'm going to be looking forward to watching and maybe get a homegrown deal with the Philadelphia Union in the near future. I mean, left-back's a bit of a weak position for 2005s. I honestly wouldn't be mad if he was called into the U20 team for the next Revelations Cup. I rate him that much as a player. So those are some good all-around players, but what about some specialists? Some guys who do one thing very well that you just have to take notice of. First, there's Italo Jenkins, a striker from Atlanta United joining Oregon State University. And with him, it's athleticism. Really good athlete, strong player, game-breaking in his ability. Defense will struggle to deal with him, and he's also a very fast player. Good finishing as well, former USU 15 international, and just somebody who might be able to follow that Daryl DK path of being a really good athlete up front who's able to make some of that of his career. I think he could be a really good player. Mateo Ponce is a midfielder who's joining Georgetown from NYCFC, and he's going to be taking Jack Penayutu's number, who's somebody who earned a homegrown deal after his freshman year, and I think he's somebody who might be able to inherit that mantle. He's a really strong technical player. His passing and creativity is off the charts. Just a really fun player. He's able to use that to win a Generation Adidas Cup, Best 11 awards, and I think he's somebody who could be a really fun, creative player that somebody to keep your eye on. Angel Martinez is a center back from Seattle going to the University of Portland. He is amazing playing out of the back, great with his passing, like Brandon Craig levels of passing. Somebody who can really initiate attacks from the back and deal with pressure very well. In addition, he's actually a very quick player as well. I was really impressed with his speed. But the bad thing is his height isn't ideal for a center back, and I can't find out exactly what it is, which is kind of a red flag. But he might be able to switch to defensive midfield, and if he's tasked with that, I think he's definitely capable of it. His technical ability is really strong. Like I mentioned before, I like his speed. I think he could be a good destroyer. So definitely somebody to keep your eye on. And if he does stick at center back, really talented passer. Staying in Seattle, we have Wyatt Nelson, a goalkeeper going to UCLA. And Nelson is a really talented player named to the U.S. Under-19 team. I think he's one of the most talented 2005 goalkeepers in the country. He's made his pro debut already and was instrumental to Seattle winning the Under-17 Generation Adidas Cup, which Angel Martinez was also a part of. As a player, he's a really solid shot stopper capable of keeping teams in games. He's a goalkeeper, so typically only one guy on the field. I think he might be able to start as a freshman, though. He's that talented, really good in the air as well, and solid with his feet. I think he's a really talented prospect who I might have been talking out first if Julian Eyestone wasn't in this, and I think it's very close between those two really talented goalkeepers there. Next is Saxon Wolcott, a goalkeeper from DC United going to Maryland. Another very good shot stopper, good in the air, and he's somebody who looks really comfortable coming out of the box, good at being a sweeper keeper. I think that's a real asset for him. Feet are far from a weakness, pretty good there. And in addition, just think he's a really talented player, somebody to keep your eye on. Now with goalkeepers, again, as I mentioned before, not all of them are going to be starting right away, but once he gets his shot, I think he's going to be a good player. Jonathan Montanu is a goalkeeper from Houston joining UAB. When I talk about goalkeepers, I kind of end up repeating myself a lot because just they're good all-around players. Solid shot stopper, good distribution, very good at claiming balls out of the air. Just looks like a really good player. But I think what sets Jonathan apart is what I call his energy. Do you know the thing that Martinez has where you just see him in a penalty shootout and go, oh, I'm going to have to deal with this guy? The type of player who you definitely hate to play against, but you'd love to have him on his team. He has that energy, which I feel like is a good thing. I like to see that out of a goalkeeper, and I hope that he keeps that. One more goalkeeper, Alex Carr from Sporting Kansas City, who's going to be joining Indiana. He's another really talented shot stopper, really good reaction, gets down well, especially for his size. And with his size, he's going to be good in the air. Now, his feet are still a work in progress, but I think you've seen how much I value distribution in goalkeepers, so for me to be putting him on this list is a real testament to how good his shot stopping is. I can easily see him following Roman Celentano's path and being a really strong goalkeeper out of Indiana. Back to outfield players, and back to the USL, we have Henrik Sakshaug, a midfielder from San Antonio joining the University of Maryland. He made his debut for San Antonio in the US Open Cup and was part of a team that beat Austin FC, an MLS club. Now, as a player, he's really good with his ball progression as a midfielder, good at carrying the ball off the field, passing it forward, something that I think is really valuable, and his athleticism is really able to shine his defensive work. He looks like a really talented box-to-box player I see a lot of potential for. Another San Antonio player is Roman Holt, a center back who's going to be joining San Diego State. He also played in that Austin game, made a few more appearances in that Open Cup run, and is a really talented defender. Good athleticism, solid passing out the back, strong in the air, just what you like to see in a center back. I think he has a good future as well. Another set of teammates next. These ones are actually going to the same school. First, there's Ethan Subachan, a striker from Orlando City, who's going to be joining the University of Louisville. And he's a really talented striker. He's somebody who's already made his pro debut, was part of the U.S. Under-19 team, and he's a really good athlete, good with his pace, strong, which really helps out in his hold-up play, good attacking instincts and finishing as well. Looks like a really talented striker prospect. Chase Vasquez is another forward from Orlando, and I don't really like using the term forward. I feel like you should either say if somebody's a striker or a winger, but he's kind of a tweener player where he could play either striker or out on the wing. He's a left-footed player, so I'd like to put him on the right, have him cut in on that left foot, but he's got a ton of good pace, good finishing. I think he'd play either position. He was a part of Weston before he joined Orlando City and was part of Ben Kremoski's breakout moment where their team won the U16 title in MLS Next, and I think he could be a really solid prospect. Another player from Louisville, and with them and David Bacuso, they've got a decent pipeline from Orlando to Louisville. Luciano Sanchez is a forward from the Philadelphia Union joining Rutgers. He's another very good forward with good pace, good physicality, and he's very good in the final third, be it his crossing or his finishing. His hold-up play is also strong, which, weirdly enough, shows up even if he's playing out wide, so I think striker might be a good option for him, but either way, really talented player going to Rutgers. Logan Oliver is a defensive midfielder from Philadelphia joining Indiana. He's a player who was the captain of the U17 title-winning team, and he's also made his pro debut. Really good defender, always in the right place to break up attacks. He's a good athlete as well, solid in build-up play. I honestly look at him and I see somebody who could possibly be an heir to Leon Flock in Philadelphia, and a really talented player going to Indiana. Next is a defensive midfielder who's coming to Philadelphia, not leaving, Jack Ryan Jeremiah, who's joining Penn from Seattle's academy. He's another 2006 player who's reclassified up, and he's another really talented player. You couldn't tell his age from his play. Very good on the ball, good at helping in build-up play, and he's another player who's really good at breaking attacks, gets to show off his athleticism. He's a really talented defensive midfielder prospect. He's a young player in this class who's only going to get better, and somebody with a good future. Gabriel Velez is a left back from Inter Miami joining North Carolina State, and he's a player who's very interesting as a left back prospect, because typically with left backs you get excited for them to burst up the field, provide width with their left foot, but I think Velez might be a little bit different. He's very skilled on the ball, and I could see him inverting into the midfield like Zinchenko does for Arsenal. He's also very fast, good defensively, so he has that aspect to his game locked down, and he's somebody who might be very suited to what the game's looking like it's changing into, and I think Gabriel Velez is definitely an interesting prospect to keep your eye on. Carlos Leatherman is a right back from Minnesota United. Did not expect to see Minnesota United representation, who's going to be joining St. Louis. He's made a ton of appearances in MLS Next Pro and was named an MLS Next All-Star. He's a player who looks like he's doing really well right now. He's very good going forward, very fast, good dribbling, good cross, strong technical ability. He seems like a recently converted right back, so his defense isn't all the way there yet, but with his speed, I think he should be able to transition pretty well. He looks like a good player going to St. Louis who's on the rise and only looking to get better. Ryan Quintos is a center back from Chicago joining the University of Wisconsin. He's a player who was a U.S. Under-15 international and has made his pro debut. As a player, he's very strong defensively and very good on the ball as well. Something that you might notice, though, is his height isn't ideal, which might lead to him switching to playing right back, but I think it's something he's definitely capable of. His technical ability is strong, and when I saw him play a game at right back, his crossing was on point. He's a versatile player who can play at center back or right back, and I think he could have success at either position. Ryder Mills is a striker from Cincinnati who's going to be joining Yale. He's a striker who's on the rise, and he has been in great form this season. He was named an MLS Next All-Star after really good performances with the U19 Cincinnati team. He's made his MLS Next Pro debut where he's continued to score goals. His finishing and attacking instincts are very good, as well as his pressing, and if he's able to continue this rise, he could be impacting the pro game sooner rather than later. Mateo Pinilla is a center back from Houston joining UCLA. He's a player who's pretty good on the ball, as well as being a solid defender. He's a guy who has made multiple U.S. Under-19 team appearances and looks to be a pretty good prospect. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Houston didn't give him a homegrown deal, but hey, he's going to be a good player for UCLA and definitely someone to keep your eye on. Fritz Volmar is a center back from St. Louis who's going to be joining Northwestern University. On the plus side, though, he's a U.S. Under-19 international multiple times with that team, and he's somebody who's made his pro debut already. Good speed, very good athlete at defensive position, solid defender, and looks good on the ball, and is a left-footed center back as well. I think he's somebody who's on the rise, he's continuing to get better, and hopefully he continues that upward trajectory at Northwestern. Santi Ferreira is a midfielder from FC Dallas joining Pitt. And if you're wondering, Ferreira from FC Dallas, yes, he's Jesus' little brother. He's a midfielder who's already made his next pro debut, and he's somebody who's very good technically and has a lot of good speed. And for a player whose brother made a World Cup squad based primarily off of those two traits, it's something to keep your eye on. I think he'd be a very strong player for Pitt and possibly follow in his brother's footsteps and be pro, maybe even international in the future. Another player going to Pitt is NYCFC's Massimo Murania. He's a striker with a really good goal-scoring record. He's good in the air and good with both of his feet to the point where I couldn't tell which was his preferred foot. With his goal-scoring, he could be a really good player, and in addition, good in the air, that turns into some good hold-up play, and he looks like he'd be a really good striker. Carlo Brown is another player from NYCFC who's going to be joining Brown. It's kind of funny, he's got the same name. Got Brown going to Brown. It'd be funny if Brandon Marshall went to Marshall and Ohio State got Danny Shitu. But as a player, he's a forward, another player who play out wide or up top. He's got a lot of good speed, which he can use to press defenses and get in behind them. He's a very good finisher, can make some really smart passes as well. He looks like a really talented player who I was honestly surprised I hadn't heard anything about before I watched film because he is really impressive. Isaiah Chisholm is a striker from DC United joining Kentucky. He's a former US U15 international who's made his pro debut in the USL Championship. DC's affiliate Loudoun United is still in the championship, only MLS club that is. As a player, he's a very good old school number 9, massive player up top. He's got good hold-up play and athleticism, and very good pressing as well, I noticed. I think he's somebody who could easily find himself a role, and I could see him being a pro player in the future. Isaac Calderon is a midfielder/winger from Cincinnati who's going to be joining UAB. He's already made his pro debut, and he's somebody who spent a good amount of his youth in Spain, and it shows. He's a very good technical player, his dribbling is very strong, and he's got a lot of good creativity. In addition, he's got a good burst of speed. I could see him being a very strong midfielder or winger. Wherever he lines up, I think he's going to be good, and he's a talented player. Another Cincy player is Matt Dreas, a defensive midfielder who's going to be joining Akron. He's made his pro debut already, and he looks like another strong defensive midfielder. Good defensively, he's a good athlete, and somebody I'd see really helping out teams by breaking up attacks. Looks like a solid player. One last Cincy player, Morgan Marshall, is a right back going to Penn State. He's made his pro debut for Cincinnati too under his coach, Tyrone Marshall, his dad, who's a former Jamaica international. But this is not nepotism. He is a really talented player. He's got good speed, which allows him to get up and down the field, good dribbling, he's got a good cross, and his technical ability is solid. His speed really helps him out on defense as well, and even has a good long throw. He looks like a really talented right back prospect. Matthew Fisher is a center back/right back from Sporting Kansas City who's going to be joining Michigan. I say center back/right back because I've seen most of him at center back, but he's 5'9", so it's pretty likely that he'll make the switch out wide, but I think he's capable of doing that. He's actually a really talented defender, good athleticism, and really good with his defensive instincts and awareness, and he's good on the ball as well, which makes me think he'd make that transition pretty well. He's a good defender and good on the ball. He might even be able to stick at center back. He looks like a good player. Griffin Moore is a center back from Colorado who's going to be joining Kentucky, and he's just a really solid all-around center back. He's got good size, good in the air, very mobile, especially for his size, good speed. He's talented on the ball. He's a physical, good defender. He just has everything that you like to see in a center back. I could see him being a very strong player at Kentucky. You could turn that into a good pro career. 2 academy prospects left, and continue with my Philadelphia Union bias, Marcello Mazzola, an attacker who's going to be joining Villanova. He's a player who's got really good movement up top, always seems to be in the right area, and he's very strong technically as well. The thing is, I'm listing him as an attacker because I'm not sure if he really has position. I think he might be best as a secondary striker, but we'll have to see where Villanova ends up playing him. But overall, he's a really talented player who I think is a bit similar to Ian Abbey, who I talked about last year in this spot, who ended up having a very good season at Rutgers. So I feel confident in what Mazzola can do. Lastly, for academies, there's Diego Hernandez from FC Dallas, who's going to be joining Furman. There's a bit of a connection between FC Dallas and Furman. If you're wondering if because that's a former FC Dallas player at Furman, no, he's been coaching at Furman since before FC Dallas existed. But Diego Hernandez is an interesting player because the first time I saw him, I'd kind of written him off. I wasn't too impressed with him, and I looked at him, he's a former USU 15 international, so I kind of wrote him off as an early bloomer. But it turns out he had been in a pretty bad car crash that he'd still been recovering from. And since then, he's continued to get healthier, he's continued to improve, and he's looking like a player who seems like if he had a couple more years, he'd be on track for a homegrown contract. He's a really talented player from Dallas I'm excited to see him continue to rise or maybe get back to his former form. Before I get into the high school players, I want to go over some club standouts. These are players from clubs that compete in MLS Next or ECNL or another league, but they don't have a first-team destination. They're not associated with an MLS or USL team. But there have been some good players on them. I'm going to start with one from probably the best team, FC Delco. Caden Grabfelder is a midfielder from FC Delco who's going to be joining Penn State. He was named an MLS Next All-Star for his performances in the U19 competition, and he was also named a U.S. Soccer Youth All-American. He's a player who's technically sound, really good on the ball, and shows some good athleticism, solid dribbling, and he was the cog in a really strong FC Dallas team who I think has a really good future. Another FC Delco player is Kaio Reis, who's going to be joining Northwestern. But he's a good old-school number 9, strong up top, good hold-up play, good movement, and finishing's very strong. He was giving good MLS clubs a lot of trouble with his physicality, and I think he continued to do that at a higher level. Also, I'm realizing that I made a whole big deal about Northwestern, and I'm just like, he's going to Penn State, whatever. Marcos Moore is a striker from Rise, who's going to be joining St. Louis. He was named the U.S. Soccer Youth Player of the Year, and he's somebody who looks really promising. He's got a ton of good athleticism, both speed and strength. He's very good with his movement, good attacking instincts, and his finishing is top class. He's somebody who might be another really good striker to come out of college. Enzo Newman is a winger from Murrieta who's going to be joining Oregon State. And when you look at him, he has blazing speed. It is a clear and obvious strength, and something you have to keep your eye on. But in addition, he's a very good dribbler, being able to take on players. He uses his speed well, and he's very good with both of his feet, which may allow him to operate on either side of the wing. He'd be in this either way because his speed is just that impressive, but he's a good all-around player as well. Luke Van Huckelum, I think, is a striker from Sockers who's going to be joining Maryland. He's a player who was named a U.S. Youth All-American and is a player who spent some time in Europe. I want you to take a guess which country. He's also the U.S. U16 MLS Next Golden Boot winner, which is a big honor, and his finishing is a real strength. In addition, he's got good athleticism, he's good at scoring with both of his feet, though he is a lefty, which I like, and he's got some good feet. He's really skilled with his dribbling at times, and he's somebody who I think could be a really talented striker. Next is Brian McManus, a player from Barcelona residency in Arizona who's going to be joining North Florida. And I say player because I don't know what position he's going to play. He's been playing as a center back a good amount. His height probably doesn't make that an option in pro ball, but I think he's really good. He's got good athleticism, good defending. Maybe he can play fullback. Which side? I don't know. He's two-footed. He can play either side very well. He's also very skilled on the ball. He may be able to invert, similar to what Gabriel Velez can do. He could also play in the midfield because he's very strong on the ball as well. He's a very versatile player, a lot of talent, and I'd like to see what he can do at North Florida. Next is Jack Ross, a center back from Shattuck St. Mary's, who's going to be joining Notre Dame. I know SSM is a school technically, but it's like a sports school like IMG or Mount Verde, so I'm not counting them as a high school team. but Jack is a really good player. He's another center back who's good all around, fast, mobile, especially for his size, good in the air, solid defender, very talented on the ball. Just looks like a good all-around player who I'm excited to see what he can do. Micah Thomas is a center back or a left back from Jacksonville who's going to be joining UConn. He's a player who came to my attention when he scored a goal in the US Open Cup, and he actually got a red card that game as well, but that was kind of BS. He's a very skilled center back who's an athletic player, he's good in the air, he's left-footed, and he can also play left back. But I want to make it clear that this isn't a sort of tweener, he's kind of stuck in between two positions. No, he's very good going forward, so he can play left back well. He's also very strong defensively, so he can play center back. It's real versatility, and he's a talented player who I can see doing very well at UConn. Charlie Kosakov is a striker from the San Diego Surf who's going to be joining Washington. He's a player who's kind of wondering where I should put him because he's actually on a Torrey Pines State Championship team with Mikey Sherlock, but he ended up leaving the team to go on trial before that game happened, so I decided to put him in the club list. But either way, he's a really talented player. He's a good finisher up top. I think the most notable thing is his technical ability. He's really skilled on the ball, and I could see him being a striker who's able to drop in deep and combine with the midfield while also being a good finisher, kind of in a Harry Kane, Karim Benzema type role. He's obviously not on that level, but he looks like a really talented player, maybe do a secondary striker role well, and I think he could be a really good player for Washington, someone to keep your eye on. The last player before we get to high school, guys, is Metovall's Kyle Durham, a goalkeeper going to Pitt. He's a goalkeeper who's really good with this distribution, really good at playing out of pressure and finding passes, which is a little bit weird because he's listed his favorite player as Joe Hart, the poster boy of goalkeepers for being bad with their feet. He's also a very solid shot stopper and is good in the air. That's everything I look for in a goalkeeper. He controls his box well, he makes good saves, and is really good with his feet. With that, we're on to the high school guys. For the high school players, I'm going to be going over the top players in the nation. It helped narrow down the field a little bit. I'm going with players who are either All-Americans, a State Player of the Year, or led their squad to a state title. And one thing I'm changing from last year is that if a player did this their freshman, junior, or sophomore year, and then didn't play the rest of their time in high school and instead focused on a club or maybe an academy, they're still eligible for this list. I don't want to punish success and keep players with upward trajectory. Now, I will have an additional 10 players who aren't in this category, just so I'm not missing anybody who could be really good who just didn't get an accolade or didn't get noticed. With that, let's get into it. First, Lucas Almeida, and he's a good guy to start with because he won every accolade that you can in high school, so I get to explain them real quick. He was both State Player of the Year for U.S. Soccer Coaches and Gatorade, two organizations that give out Player of the Year honors. He was also a U.S. Soccer Coaches All-American, and he was named to the All-American Game. This is something that's only eligible for fall players, and it looks like it's given out mid-season. Then he won a state title with Hall, with the Connecticut state title, and he looked really good on the field as well, which matches his accolades. Amazing dribbler, just really good with the ball at his feet. He's a fun player that plays with a lot of flair. Amazing finisher, set goal-scoring records. He has good speed, good athleticism. His technical ability is sound, and just looks like a really talented striker who I'm excited to keep watching. Then Nolan Spicer. If you remember last year, I said I'd have another St. Ignatius player after talking about Luciano Pachota, and here he is. And Nolan Spicer is a great player. Ohio Player of the Year honors, All-American honors, led his team to a state title, and was actually a national champion in the fall of 2021. Just a really talented player. And on the ball, great technically. He's got some good speed. He's an athletic player. He's a lefty, he's got some good dribbling, and when he was playing with Luciano Pachota, who I mentioned before, he was actually really good at Ohio State, got all Big Ten honors, but watching those two combined was just really fun. Those two are some really talented players, and even though he's going to Notre Dame, not going to be with him anymore, I think there's going to be enough talented players there, and I think Nolan Spice will continue to shine. Hakeem Karamoko is a winger from New York City. He actually played with multiple schools, but he won a title with Martin Luther King in the New York Public League. And in addition, he played for Manhattan FC, where he played in the U.S. Open Cup. He got himself multiple goals and an assist in that run, dominating against former pro players. And he's a really talented wing prospect. He's a lefty, which I love to see. He's got really good speed, and he can cut in on that left foot. He's got good finishing, obviously. The end product is there, as you saw in the U.S. Open Cup. And in addition, really good in tight spaces. The technical ability is there. Good close control. Just an explosive, dynamic winger who's good technically, looks like a really talented prospect heading to NC State. Harrison Burtos is a defender from the Brooks School who's going to be joining Washington. He's a really talented player, getting All-American honors as well as leading his team to a New England title. and just a really solid player. His technical ability is there. He actually played in the midfield, and it was shining in the midfield. Really good at playing the ball at the back, but I see him as a center back long term, though. He does have enough speed to keep up with wingers, and he is left-footed, so maybe switch it out to left back. He's also very good in the air, solid defensively, just everything you want to see in a center back, and probably a bit more versatility to play other positions if he wants to as well. Trevor Walk is a winger from Harriman in Utah who was staying in-state and joining Kyle Beckerman at Utah Valley University. He was a really good player at Harriman. He scored the game-winning goal in the state championship game with seconds left in regulation. Got a good win there, and that earned him Utah Gatorade Player of the Year honors. He was also a club All-American outside of playing in high school as well. And that was all done as a junior because he enrolled early, and he's been training with Utah Valley his senior season. And he's a really talented player. He's got good pace, good dribbling, his technical ability is good as a winger, and he can score goals, as I told you in that final. Looks like a really talented player, and honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't end up with Real Salt Lake, but hey, ended up working out for Kyle Beckerman, so works out in the end. Now to talk about goalkeepers, and there's somebody who I've wanted to talk about for a long time. If you remember last year, when I was talking about Luciano Pachota from St. Ignatius, I didn't say one player. I said there's going to be at least two players from St. Ignatius who I'd be talking about next season, and we've got one of them, Patrick McLaughlin. And I've wanted to talk about him for a long time because as I was watching Pachota play, the St. Ignatius team passed back to the goalkeeper, and he made an amazing cross-field pass. And I was just like, what? Either that was a fluke, or this is one of the best American goalkeepers I've ever seen with the ball at his feet. And then he did it again. Patrick McLaughlin's distribution is a huge strength of his, and it's going to continue to get better at Ohio State. He looks like a really talented player, and in addition, other things are there. He's a good shot stopper, he has good size, good at controlling his area. Just looks like a really talented goalkeeper who I am excited to see continue to progress, because I think that's something that he might have something that we never saw before in an American goalkeeper. Even with the academy guys, he's got better distribution than them. It's a really exciting prospect in Patrick McLaughlin. Another top goalkeeper is Alex Cron from St. Xavier in Kentucky, who's going to be staying in-state and going to Kentucky. He's a really talented player who was named an All-American, also was part of a state championship winning team in 2020. And he's a really talented player with good shot stopping, distribution is on point as well, another big player who controls box, and he even spent a lot of time training with Louisville City, another USL team that does a good job integrating talent into the first team. He looks like a really good prospect and a good story. He actually overcame cancer when he was younger, and somebody who I'm definitely rooting for to do well, and a big talent going to Kentucky. Back to field players, and there's Remy Akunola, a really talented player from Brookwood in Georgia. He was the Georgia Gatorade Player of the Year, and he's actually an Atlanta United Academy player. Now, when I get Academy players playing in high school, to be honest, I hold them to a bit of a higher standard. They have to really impress to get in, and he does. I would have been talking about him in the Academy list if he didn't play in high school. Just a really good player, got great speed, amazing pace that he uses to be a good defender. He's a right back, he's good in possession, good going forward, just a really talented option who's going to be doing well at Clemson. Simon Vacalorenzi is a striker from California. He went to Davis, and he's going to stay in state and go to Sacramento State University. And he was a really talented player at Davis. He won California Gatorade Player of the Year after leading the squad to a NorCal Division title. He's a really talented player, a good striker at doing the typical striker things, but I think the thing that really makes him stand out is his ability to drop into the midfield, really talented on the ball, and as I mentioned before, some players, he might be able to do that Harry Kane, Kareem Benzema role. I'm not making a comparison between the two, but he's a talented player and might be able to impact games at a high level. I'm going to stay in California, and I'm going to start with the players who didn't get one of those big three accolades that I mentioned before. And for those 10, I'm going to focus a lot on winter and spring players because the All-American lists aren't that thorough outside of fall. And California, Texas, they're places with a lot of talent, so I'm going to give them some love. And first, we've got Dylan Grovevald. He's a center back who's a lefty, who's very talented, good on the ball, good physically, and a really solid defender who does a lot of things well. He's going to be going to Stanford and looks like a really talented player. Clay Morador is a forward going to Indiana via Aledo. He also played for Dallas Texans. And he's just a great pacey player. He's got a good finish as well, but the main thing is his speed. He says he runs a 4.4 40-yard dash, and I can't question it. Just great speed, and good finishing as well to go with it, and it looks like Indiana's getting another very good player. From Palos Verdes, there's Jack Flanagan, who's going to be going to Notre Dame. He shined for Patadores on club level. He's got really good speed as well. His dribbling is very strong, good finisher, and I think he'll continue to shine for Notre Dame. I think he'll look good for the Fighting Irish. Back to the players who did receive accolades, and first, one of the best, Ben Medor, who's going to Penn State via Calvert Hall, and he won just about everything that you can. He was State Player of the Year, even National Player of the Year by some accounts, and in addition, just All-American honors, a state title, even a national title. He dominated ECNL as well. Just a very good player. He's got good close control, strong athleticism, and he can really hit a pass or a long shot. He can just hit a ball very well. Ben Medor is a player to look out for. Dominic Dubon is a player who did not get high school accolades, but is still a really talented player. He came from the Philadelphia Union Academy and DC United, and he was really highly guarded before the pandemic, and looked like things had fallen off a bit for then, but he popped up at Baltimore Armor, was a youth All-American, and when I watched him at Sparrows Point and with Baltimore Armor, he looked really talented. He had a lot of good speed, his dribbling was solid, very good finisher. I'm not positive on what position he will play, but he's got a ton of talent, and when he's given a chance, he shines. Maybe just hit a bump in the road, but he looks like he's going to be good. He's going to UMBC, which isn't the most glamorous school you can pick, but Ryan Becker was a very good player at UMBC, and he just transferred to UCLA, and I've got a lot of faith in Dominic Dubon to be a good player. Alex Harris is a striker out of Columbia River in Washington who did everything you can in high school before going to Cornell. State champion, All-American honors, Player of the Year honors, just a great talent in high school. He did this with elite athleticism, really good pace, and strong finishing as well. He's definitely a player to watch at Cornell. Andrew Meyerson is a center back going to Duke out of Issaquah in Washington. Hope I pronounced that right. After graduating, he spent time with Barcelona, Arizona, and he looked very good there. I think he's going to be playing a center back. He's talented on the ball, so talented that he could play in the midfield as well. I think center back's the best for him. He's good defending, strong player, good in the air as well, and somebody who can definitely leave his mark on Duke. Shaheen Ganguly comes to Washington via Interlake, and he is a supremely talented player. He's an amazing dribbler, he's a small guy, but he has a low center of gravity, and that really helps him. He's great on the ball with his dribbling. In addition, really good technically, good creative player, can make great things happen. He's just a very fun player to watch, good burst of speed as well. Looks like a really talented player going to Washington. Next is John Heaps, the son of a former U.S. national team player, and he's going to be going to Georgetown. He was a very strong player in Alabama for Mountain Brook, where he won Player of the Year honors, was an All-American, led his team to a championship. He's a very good midfielder with good goal-scoring ability, crashing into the box, good athleticism, strong work rate, and he even made the bench for the Birmingham Legion. He looks like a really talented player. I'm excited to watch. And fun fact, his high school teammate, a goalkeeper, he had a big boot. I looked it up. He's going to be kicking for Alabama. So something interesting there. Mateus Lieb is a center back from Briarwood Christian who's going to be going to Clemson. He's somebody who is very good on the ball as a center back. He's so good that he can play in the midfield, and his head is a magnet for balls on set pieces. He's a huge threat there, and just a solid defender as well. He's somebody I could see definitely translating to the pros with his aerial ability and physicality, especially with his on-ball ability as well. Now back to the more regular players, and do you remember how I said at least 2 players from St. Ignatius would make it? Well, here's the at least part, Nathan Trickett. And to be honest, I had to make a cap here. There are just too many talented players, and some are kind of hard done by to not be on this list. It's just an immensely talented team. I mean, they've won 4 straight state titles, a couple of national titles in that time, and just dominating Ohio. In fact, I'd say that if you're in the state of Ohio and let's say you pretend to care about the fairness of high school sports and said nothing about this team, you're just a liar coming from a place of hate. Trans rights. And no disrespect to the program, by the way, but it's what it is. Then on to Nathan, really talented player. He comes from a futsal background and it really shows on the field. Great technically. He's got a good burst of speed and he's a left footer, so I would like to see him as in that inverted right wing spot, but he is really good technically and I kind of want to keep him in the midfield. I kind of see a little bit of Luca de la Torre in him. Just a very talented player, definitely somebody to keep your eye on. He's going to Xavier, by the way. Next is Andrew Kitch, a striker from Shawnee going to North Carolina. Can't believe it took this long to get to UNC. They've got a really good program. But Kitch, who was very good for Shawnee, helped the team to a regional title, which was as far as he could go for New Jersey in 2020, and after that he switched to playing for Real Jersey full-time, and he really improved in MLS Next. He's a big striker, so he's obviously good in the air, got good hold-up play, but his technical ability is really strong, to the point where he would be pretty good in the midfield, similar to like a Sander Berge as a big guy playing in the midfield. But he is a striker, good finisher, and is very mobile for a big man as well. He looks like a really talented striker who I'm excited to watch in North Carolina. I believe he's wearing number 23 there, so got a lot of big shoes to fill, but I think he's up for it. Going to Maryland University for the next 3 players, and first is Cameron Gerber, a midfielder from Boulder in Colorado. And Gerber is amazing technically. His passing is really good, and he shows a lot of good creativity. Really good technical player. And sometimes when I watch these players, you have to watch a couple of highlight tapes, few full games of film to really try to get a read on them, see if are these guys going to be a top player nationally. It's tough to gauge. With Gerber, it was like 2 minutes, just, okay, yep, this guy's talented, he's definitely in, and then just watch it because he's just a really good player. I'm excited to see him again at Maryland. Next is Jack and Joe McDade, who are from Shipley and played on that really strong FC Delco team. Jack is a defensive midfielder, while Joe is a left back, but at 6'3", he might be able to switch to center back. Both are very strong technically and good defensively, good in the air as well. A couple of really strong players who were good for that strong FC Delco team. Gage Daniels is a center back from Olathe West in Kansas. He's going to be going to Omaha. He's a strong defender, good physically, good in the air as well, and he played a bit more in an advanced position and was actually forward of the year in Kansas. He got All-American honors, was a state player of the year, and looks like a solid defender who I'd put as a center back playing for Omaha in Nebraska. Shane Velez is a center back from Penridge going to UMass, and he's a really talented player. All-American honors, was named U.S. Soccer Pennsylvania Player of the Year, and he deserves it. He played a bit in the midfield, but that's just because he's really talented on the ball, very good at playing out of pressure and making one-touch passes. Love his technical ability. He's quick, strong defensively as well, good in the air, and has all the makings of a really good center back. Another center back going to UMass is Ivan Ver, I think. He's out of Riverside, and he was part of a state title-winning team that also included a Puerto Rico Youth International. But for Ivan, he's a very talented center back on the ball. He's also a good physical player, but his passing ability is what really stands out for me. And 2 good on-ball center backs going to UMass. They might have some sort of plan there to build out the back. Might be worth watching them. Pretty interesting how they're building their team. Next is Nick Collins, a center back from Gil St. Bernard, who's going to Rutgers. Gil St. Bernard won another state title this year. He was the catalyst for this one. I talked about Gil players in my first season with Micah Garnett, and I totally didn't last year because Alex Porto went straight to Fulham. He skipped college altogether. But Collins continues that legacy of really good players. He's a huge defender, very good in the air, really strong defensively, not bad on the ball, can get physical, he's got good speed. Looks like a really talented player going to Rutgers. One more kind of maybe center back is Robert Perez out of Amityville in New York, who's going to be going to the University of North Carolina State. And he's a very talented player, good technically, and good in the air as well. He played in the midfield some for Amityville as they won a state title. Amityville's the same place from Camilo Ponce last year. He went there as well. And Perez looked very strong. I mean, mentioned before, good technically. That's why I believe he can translate to a center back, be good at playing out the back. One problem is that he's actually not listed on North Carolina State's roster, so I'm not positive he's going there. But NC State did this to me last year with Aiden Payne, who's definitely on the team. So I'm going to say that he's going to be there. Now, one player I couldn't do this with was Kai Hatton. He's going to Santa Clara. I believe he should be playing there, but he's not on the roster, so I'm not going to be talking about him. But a good player there, and if Perez is playing for NC State, I think he's going to be very good. Back to goalkeepers, and we have Drew Hartman out of Gonzaga, who's going to be going to Portland. Gonzaga is the high school, by the way. That confused me a couple of times. But he looks like a really talented player. He was playing for Gonzaga only one season as a freshman where he helped them win a state title. After that, he was recruited to DC United, where he played for them. And DC, he showed a lot of good shot stopping, good in the air, not bad with his feet. He's another player who's very good at coming out of his goal, whether to claim crosses or go and break up an attack as a sweeper keeper. He looks like a very promising player. I'm excited to see him continue to progress at Portland. Sebastian Pliska is a goalkeeper from Loomis Chaffee who's going to be going to Boston College. He was an All-American and spent time in the past at New England Revolution with Hartford Athletics, so he has a very good training background. In addition, he's a massive goalkeeper, huge, but gets down well for his size, shows a lot of good reactions, controls his box well with his height, and even makes some good passes. He looks like a really promising goalkeeper. When you're that big and you have that good reactions, there's typically good things in your future. Rex Elfin is a goalkeeper from St. Christopher in Virginia who's going to be going to Bucknell University. He won a state title for St. Christopher and really impressed in that game. Very impressive shot stopper who's good in the air as well. He's a very strong athlete, actually played a bit of basketball, and looks like a very good player. He can make some passes with his feet, but similar to when I was talking about Alex Kara, his shot stopping is why he's on here, and I'm somebody who really values ability with the feet, and Rex Elfin looks like he'd be a really talented goalkeeper, and Bucknell's actually putting together a decent group of players. I watched them a big bit last year with some guys, so someone to keep your eye on. Ethan Sesperowski is a forward from Belchertown going to Virginia Tech. For Belchertown, he helped them win a state title as a freshman, scoring the game-winning goal in overtime in the state title game and was their top scorer throughout the season. After that, and during the pandemic, he moved to Boston Bolts where he played, and he continued to impress. He's got a lot of really good speed. His athleticism is a big strength of his, and his finishing is really good. He scores against some good MLS opponents, really talented there, and he's got some good energy. He's good in combination play, and looks like a really good forward going to Virginia Tech. Richie Ludwig is a forward from Clarkston in Michigan who's staying in state and going to Michigan State University. He was an All-American, and he earned those honors with really good athleticism and technical ability, good goal scoring as well. And he continues a trend of Michigan State recruiting well in state. Jonathan Stout and Jack Gugamos came there last year, and Jonathan Stout, who I talked about in the previous season, was actually Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Really talented player there, and exciting things for Michigan State. Staying in Michigan, we have Christian Rossi, a forward from Saline who's going to Oakland. And Oakland University is also in Michigan. He's not going to the Bay Area, which was news to me until I looked it up. He's a very good finisher, named to the All-American game, racked up a lot of goals, and his technical ability and link-up play is strong as well. Another good player coming out of Michigan. Gavin Kritmeyer is a midfielder from Waukesha West in Wisconsin who's going to be going to Northern Kentucky. He had a past at FC Cincinnati and was named an All-American this fall, and he's a very good player, really strong technical ability. His passing in particular is very good. He's also got a good burst of speed, and he uses that to get stuck in defensively. And with his size, technical ability, and athleticism, he looks like a really solid player. Keegan Rhodes is a left back from Bellarmine College Prep going to Santa Clara. His team won the NorCal title, and he was a big part of that. He's a fast player, good on the wing. He was playing a bit further forward for his high school team, and he looked good in attacking positions. Defensive work rate was there as well, and playing as a left back full-time, he shows a lot of promise. Nate Zimmerman is a midfielder/winger from Dalburton in New Jersey going to Notre Dame. He was an All-American and won a 2020 regional title, which again was as far as you could go in 2020 with Dalburton, and he was teammates with Kurt Califf, who I've talked about in the past, and was a big part of Syracuse winning a national title this past season. As a player, he's got good speed, which is why Notre Dame listed him as a forward, good dribbling as well, but also a very strong technical player. He's very two-footed, uses both of his feet very well, and Nate Zimmerman looks like somebody to watch out for sure. Next is Jabril Bangbala from LaSalle in Rhode Island, who's going to be going to Army. And I have looked it up. It looks like military players have been allowed to play pro sports recently, so I'm going to be including him. In the past, I have excluded military players because, they're not going to play in pro sports. They're going to a military school, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Jabril was a very good player for LaSalle. He won a state title in 2021 before focusing on club in his senior season. He's also a track star, winning a state championship meet in a 200. I think he did at least. I wasn't completely positive, and I'm not going to learn how track works to double check, but the point is he's fast. But when I was looking at high school players, there were a good amount of track stars, but what separates Jabril from the bunch is his technical ability is there. Very good in combination play, and in addition, amazing finisher. Looks like a really talented striker who I'm hoping you can see in the pros instead of in the military. Next is Travis Smith, a right back from DuPont Manual in Kentucky, who's going to Wake Forest. He was a very good player, being named Kentucky Gatorade Player of the Year and All-American, and even appeared on the bench for Louisville City. As mentioned before, they do a great job with their academy, Louisville City. It's no surprise they've had Gomez and Winder come through there. But Smith, he looks very promising. Athletic player, strong defensively. He's good dribbling as well. Going to a good school in Wake Forest with strong attacking and defensive play. He looks like he's a really promising guy. Asher Azuzu is a striker from Eastview in Minnesota, going to Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He was an All-American this year, and he is a freak athlete, a freak of nature player. Extremely strong, good speed as well, and in addition, solid player. His finishing is very strong, and he's shown good moments in combination play. But I think the thing that really puts him above the rest is, I just have to say, his bravery. The only way I can really describe it is, I can't really describe it. I think you should just watch his highlight tape, and when you get to the moment, you'll know. It's something that I've actually shown people, just this dude has something special in him, has potential to be a game-breaking player, and definitely someone to keep your eye on. Next is Brady Geho, a striker from Archbishop Curley in Maryland, going to St. John's University. Geho is an All-American, and as a player, he's a really good finisher, racked up a lot of goals. He's also a big guy. He's good with his hold-up play, he's good in the air, and he moves around very well for a big man. He's going to be hoping he can replicate Jacob Murrell, who came from Maryland last season, went to Georgetown in the Big East and dominated. He's going to St. John's in the Big East. Hopefully he'll be able to score goals as well. Ben Feinstein is a defensive midfielder from the Kiski School, who's going to be going to Michigan. He was an All-American this year and also led his team to the PA Independent title. And as a player, he's a very strong destroyer midfielder. He's athletic, good defensively, and always knows how to break up attacks. In addition, not bad at the ball in build-up play, and I think he can be really good. He comes from the Pittsburgh Riverhound system, another team that I'm pretty impressed by when I look at Pittsburgh Riverhound players, and I think he's going to be really good. Another son of a former U.S. international, Max Talley, a defensive midfielder from Houston, which is in Tennessee, not Texas. Important, remember that for later, who's going to Virginia. After winning the Tennessee State Championship, he was recruited by Memphis. Remember, we're in Tennessee, not Texas. And he made appearances for them in the USL, and it's easy to see why. He's a very strong athlete. His defensive abilities are very strong as well. Good work rate, good positioning, always able to break up attacks. And he was able to keep up with the USL team, so the transition to college should be easy. And fun fact, his teammate at Houston was a very big guy. I looked him up, and it turns out he's going to be playing offensive line for Ole Miss. If I had a nickel for every time a son of a former U.S. International's high school goalkeeper teammate went on to play football in the SEC, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Millian Evans is a player from Bay High in Ohio who's going to be going to Cleveland State. He was an All-American this year, but the more interesting thing about him is his past. He was a very highly regarded player in the Philadelphia Union Academy and nationally as an academy player, but left to go home during the pandemic. And he never really had a moment where he stopped being the good prospect. He just decided to go back home, and he's going to be staying close to home in college as well, going to Cleveland State. Something interesting is that he's listed as a forward, where he was a very talented right back, so he might be playing more with the attacking style on a different team. But he has good defensive work, his technical ability is strong, and he's definitely somebody to keep your eye on, because he was a very talented prospect. I mean, look at the players he was compared to. Then Belmar Joseph, a midfielder from St. Benedict's Prep who's going to Villanova. He was a part of Benedict's national championship winning team, which included a player, Ransford Yan, who's a junior who was named Gatorade National Player of the Year, who's somebody I will definitely talk about next year if he doesn't go pro. Belmar is a very good player with his passing range being very strong, good defensive work rate. He's got good size. He's listed at 6 foot tall, which I believe I saw listing at smaller a bit earlier in his career. I was always like, no, that doesn't seem right. I think he's taller. So good size, good at arriving in the box for crosses to score goals, and looks like a very good box-to-box midfielder. He also spent time at PSG. Like, this isn't like a Barcelona, Arizona. No, Paris, France. So that's something to keep your eye on, and Belmar Joseph looks like a very good player. That is it for the accolade high school players, the ones with All-American honors or State Player of the Year or a state title. Still 3 more players to talk about before you reach 100. But I want to give a quick shout out to some of those high school players who are actually going to be going pro instead of going to college. First is Cherboy Inestra from California and Anwar Benrahma Torres from Nevada, who are both going to New Mexico. Then Reagan Hesslin from California and Santiago Castaneda from Florida are both going to Germany. And then George Lombard was actually drafted by the New York Yankees and will be starting his baseball career soon. 2-sport athlete, was a very good soccer player. 2 more goalkeepers to talk about. First is Washington's Levi Bieber. He played 1 season in high school for Stadium, and before that he was a part of Seattle's academy. He's a very good shot stopper, good at controlling his area, he's good in the air, and he's very good with the ball at his feet. He looks like a really talented prospect. He just got unlucky that he had Wyatt Nelson in front of him, kind of a Chris Brady, Gabriel Slonina type situation, but I think he'll get his chance to shine in college. Zach Ando played 1 season of high school for Lincoln. He was a part of Portland's academy before that, and leaving Portland's academy is probably a good idea. He's going to be going to Cal Berkeley, and he looks like a really good goalkeeper. He's got great size, he's had to be good in the air, really solid shot stopper, good with his distribution, and looks like a top goalkeeper nationally who I'm really looking forward to seeing play at California. Last but not least is Ethan Center. I ended on Hawaii last season and feels appropriate to do the same this year. He's a midfielder from Kalani who's going to be going to UC Santa Barbara. He's a very talented athlete, he's got good speed and good defensive ability, and he's shown good sparks of creativity as well. He looks like a really talented player. And with that, that is it. My top 100 U.S. prospects heading into college this season. Thank you for watching. I know this was a very long video, but need to go over everybody, and this took an even longer amount of time, a monumental amount of time to put this all together, between watching film, making lists on the players and everything. So please, subscribe, like, comment, honestly share this, get the word on some of these really good players. And yeah, thank you for watching. See ya.